any of my sources in Canadian law enforcement, they're always kind of bitching to me about it. They're just like, it's the same shit.
And it's growing now.
And it's growing.
Yeah.
We have no resources. We don't have the manpower. They don't want to look into shit. And so, but at the end of the day, it tied in what I had been saying. And it further showed that whatever efforts that have been implemented since I started reporting on this last year until now are not really effective. It's all still going on essentially business as usual. And it doesn't help that our border czar said, well, I don't know what I'm doing here. I have no power.
Canadian thing I've heard in a while.
Actually, can you pull that up? Canadian border czar.
I almost want to see him saying this.
Canadian border czar says, I don't control RCMP. It was something like that.
I hope he said A while he said this. I don't control that A.
We don't even like say that.
Listen,
when have you ever heard me
dream.
say that?
I've watched enough South Park. That's what they say.
Yeah, see, Canada's fentanyl czar.
We don't have a video of it.
So Sam Cooper.
I have no authority.
Sam Cooper is a great Canadian crime journalist.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you weren't lying. All right, so Ottawa's newly appointed fentanyl czar told U.S. officials in Ottawa he has no authority to influence Canadian federal police or border agencies, according to an official with knowledge of the relevant meetings. For U.S. enforcement experts, the admission underlined what they describe as the emptiness of Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney's high-profile pledges to crack down on transnational fentanyl production and trafficking by Chinese and Mexican syndicates, and underscored systemic failures in Canada's response to cartels exploiting the nation's ports, borders, and infrastructures. Ottawa's response this year to President Donald Trump's threat of fentanyl interdiction tariffs and making them the 51st state, including the high-profile czar position, promises to join cross-border gang task forces, and pledges to strengthen border security, has been described by U.S. and Canadian enforcement sources as largely performative, lacking both real authority and the baseline cooperation with U.S. counterparts needed to address Canada's vulnerabilities.
So imagine the border czar being like, yeah, I actually don't have any control over the border.
Oh, yeah, here's what he said. He said, quote, listen, I don't have the RCMP, I don't tell the RCMP what to do. I listen to what RCMP, CBSA, and other police services have to say, but I have no authority to direct them or ask them to do anything, one U.S. source recalled.
So imagine if Tom Holman said that, people would be like, so what the fuck are you doing here then, right?
Yeah, go clean the bathrooms. Like, get the fuck out of here.
But this, yeah, it didn't even really make a dent in like the Canadian public perception of what's going on, which sucks.
Yeah.
Again, like I've said before, there's been like the fentanyl overdose death crisis in Canada is really, really bad. And so this isn't just some like hoo topic. It has actual implications in the livelihood of a lot of people and the lives. So essentially, there were these very performative actions that were taken by the Canadian government, I think significantly more than by the Mexican government, to appease the U.S. That did absolutely nothing. Perfect example here.
Politicians being performative, I've never heard of it.
Who would have thought?
Yeah. So they're, in your opinion then, based on the fact that there's no organization here whatsoever north of the border out over there in Canada, we have our own problems here, obviously, but up there as well, like they're totally...
It's business as
no
usual.
Clothes.
Yeah. And any of my sources in Canadian law enforcement, they're always kind of bitching to me about it. They're just like, it's the same shit.
And it's growing now.
And it's growing.
Yeah.
We have no resources. We don't have the manpower. They don't want to look into shit. They don't even really want to cooperate with the U.S. Like, we don't even know how to stop this. And these are some guys who have so much intel and information, and they can't do anything with it. Right. And I can imagine that would be very frustrating. And then I can imagine it'd be frustrating when you have me. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm going into the fentanyl lab run by the Chinese and the Mexican cartels and the Indian guys in Canada. And then everyone being like, lies. Doesn't exist. And then Canadian law enforcement is literally calling me and messaging me being like, oh my God, yes, we've been saying this. And nothing is being done.
So it's safe to assume then, minus the obvious immediate concern that more Canadians are now. I mean, fentanyl death is rising. It's a huge problem that's increasing, and that obviously is a terrible tragedy for the population. But it's also safe to say that because of the success of the labs that the cartels have been able to establish over the last few years, they're establishing a lot more, and they're doing it with impunity.
Yes, 100%, exactly that. Mic drop.
Like what? Where are they doing it though? Like in the foothills of the mountains, or are they doing it like in the back of the 7-Eleven?
It's in a lot of like farmland regions where there's like large properties. It's also in suburban areas where it like a typical trap house, and that's been happening for a long time in Canada. Is that not?
You have those in Canada?
Yep, trap houses.
You got trap queens too? Joe, like what I did there. God damn. Get your shit together, Canada.
Yeah, I agree.
We got to get our shit together here, to be fair. But like, really, come on.
And it's funny because when you ask me about, like the capital punishment, and it's like, yeah, we do not have capital punishment in Canada. And so anytime I say, we got to bring that shit back because you have like child predators just walking free 3 days after they like 10 girls under 14, people are like, how could you say that?
Yeah, this is one of the, and I understand your perspective because you see the worst of the worst and you see the so clearly guilty people. If you're talking broadly about capital punishment, the reason I have been against it is because, we got the best justice system here in America, but it's got its flaws like everywhere else, and it falls short sometimes, and there are an inordinate number of people. It's not like 0.1%. It is more than that. There are people who are found guilty of crimes in bad cases where they didn't do it, and they're on death row, and sometimes a lot of times they've gone to their death and been killed. And like the other side of that is, I'm like, dude, if you get sentenced to life in prison, I think that's almost worse because you don't know how long you're going to live. Your freedom's completely taken away. I mean, if you're sent to somewhere like Supermax, you'd rather be dead every second of every day. The issue there then also becomes, though, it's like cynically, you're like, oh, so our tax dollars are paying to keep them alive.
And you just get to like live kind of in safety. I mean, I understand the nuance to it, okay? And I know that a part of me, like in the heat of the moment when I'm covering really tragic cases, I'm like, just kill this person.
Right.
And I know that that's not good, okay? But I've seen so many cases go without justice.
Yeah.
Particularly towards just vulnerable victims, that I'm like, are you kidding me? And especially in Canada, it's such a problem because then we have catch and release. Like, you bring the guy in, oh, he did this horrible thing, he's back out on the streets. And
Didn't you just point out one of those where there was a catch and release? What was that? It was really sick.
It was really bad. Oh, the guy, no, this wasn't a catch and release. The guy, I think in Nova Scotia, which is like the east coast of Canada, who murdered and cut up like a teenage girl, and then he went to jail for I don't know some years, and now he's out in the public.
Out.
Yeah, I said that like a Canadian actually just now, but yeah, he's out.
Oh.
But see, that's
a disgrace.
But see, that's what I mean, and I think
disgrace.
that also like evokes like a really strong emotion in me where I'm like, well, fuck, you know what? If we're not gonna even lock him up, like just end it, right?
Right.
So that's where that's coming from. We're seeing just like injustice after injustice. And that, of course, still exists in the US. But I think that the level of like impunity and lack of oversight in Canada and Mexico has made me more passionate about it after seeing so many time and time again. And we talked about this in the first episode of that little girl who was beaten to death by her stepmother. And I was just like, that traumatized the fuck out of me. How many times do we see this shit happening over and over again? Like, how many times am I going to be on your show and be like, it just keeps getting worse, right? We started with that little girl, and now here we are talking about young pregnant women being murdered for their babies to be sold to Americans.
No, I hear you completely, and like the hypocritical side of like an argument with mine is that I see a story like Cain Velasquez, and I'm like, good for you, bro. And I'm sick that didn't he get sentenced to like 5 years in prison or something for that?
Yeah.
Just fucking crazy. Because like, but again, like that guy was obviously guilty. You know what I mean? And then it's like, what about another case where the person's not? And that's where my other argument comes in, the initial one I had. And I'm like, fuck. But, you know.
Yeah, in a
Cain
perfect
Velasquez,
world.
for people, he was the UFC fighter who tried to kill the guy who sexually abused his son. And
Yeah, it was 5 years.
yeah. And like, shout out to him. But please go
Honestly, yeah. I forget what I was going to say.
ahead. Sorry. Yeah,
No, but that is... Oh, in an ideal world, that you wouldn't have people facing that type of capital punishment that are, you know, innocent, or that there's like any morsel of a doubt. But also in a perfect world, you wouldn't have criminals walking freely or living their lives with any level of normalcy after having
Right.
ruined someone's life.
Right. There has to be
I
an
don't think
enormous
that's
price
fair.
to pay.
And I think that when you increase the price, you disincentivize the crime from happening.
That is another, yeah.
Because in Canada, the crime rate is really bad. Like random stranger attacks, violent ones.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.